Hi, my name is Sally Kuzemchak from the blog RealMomNutrition.com. As a dietitian, I firmly believe that eating a diet of mostly whole foods is the smartest move for you and your family. But as a mom of 2 young kids, I am also a realist. Like you, I'm on a budget, there never seems to be enough time in the day, and keeping my sanity is just as important as keeping things healthy. I'm going to show you some things that work for me. 6 tips that make cooking healthy meals just a little bit easier, plus 2 recipes that pull it all together. My first tip is to make double. As often as possible, when you already have your ingredients and your equipment out, why not make extras for a really busy night? Some of the things I like to make extras of and keep on hand are pasta sauces, balls of pizza dough. Even when I have an onion out and I'm cutting it, I'll make an extra, put it in a freezer bag, and press it flat. It takes up hardly any room in the freezer. You can also do this with pantry ingredients, like here's some taco seasoning. So now when I have a busy night, I've already got some of my ingredients ready to go, and it really saves time. My next tip is to work ahead. When you have a minute or 2 during the day, do a couple small steps that'll make dinner prep easier when the time comes. For instance, mix up a marinade, chop a few herbs, even set out your non-perishable items on the counter. It'll make everything come together a lot quicker come dinner time. Okay, I know this next one is going to sound like just another chore that you don't have time for, but bear with me. Spending 5 to 10 minutes a week on meal planning is a huge time saver. Here's how I do it. I get out my cookbooks and I sketch out the week's meals, then I sketch out my grocery list and I go grocery shopping. I made a template that I have on my blog, RealMomNutrition.com, that puts it all together. So then you have your meals for the week, you have all the groceries that you need, no more 5 p.m. what's for dinner stress. Something else that really helps is using time-saving tools. Here are some of my favorites. Slow cooker, no-brainer. You put your ingredients in the morning, push a button, get home at 6 p.m. stressed, hungry, dinner is waiting for you. Another thing I really like to use is my bread maker. It takes a lot of the work out of making homemade rolls. I also use my mini chopper all the time to chop vegetables, nuts, and herbs. Lastly, a sharp knife, absolutely essential. Get a good knife, get it sharpened regularly. A well-stocked pantry is a must. Here are some of the things that I recommend keeping on hand. Rice, canned tomatoes, broth, soy sauce, pasta, canned beans. If I have these things in my pantry, I know I have something that I can make a meal of if I get to 5 o'clock p.m. with absolutely no dinner plan. My last tip is to have a few last-ditch meals when all else fails. Here are some of mine. Eggs. Even if you buy organic eggs, a serving is less than 50 cents. That's way cheaper than meat. Fried rice. It's a great vehicle for throwing in all kinds of veggies and leftovers that you have. Same for something like quesadillas. Also sandwiches. There is no shame with sandwiches. And if you have something like a panini press, sandwiches can actually feel kind of fancy. So now that you have some time-saving tips, I'm going to show you how to incorporate some of them into an easy dinner time recipe. Now I'm going to show you how to make 2 dinner time recipes. The first is a rustic dinner roll, and you're actually going to let your bread machine do about half the work for you. What you're going to do first is put in a ½ cup of oats and 1/3 cup very hot water. You're going to combine these in your bread machine pan, give them a little stir, and then let them sit for 15 minutes to soften. After you've let the oats soften, you're going to add 3/4 cup plain yogurt. This can be full fat, non-fat, low fat, whatever you have on hand. When you're making something in your bread machine, you always want to make sure you add the wet ingredients first and the dry ingredients last. 1 tablespoon of butter goes in next. Next, you're going to add your dry ingredients. Here I've got 2 tablespoons of sugar, or you can use honey if you prefer, 1 teaspoon of salt, and a ½ teaspoon of baking soda. Next is 1/4 cup oat bran. You're going to find this in your grocery store in either the natural food section or the breakfast section because it's actually used as a hot cereal. It adds a lot of great soluble fiber which can help with your cholesterol levels. And lastly, I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour. If you'd like, you can sub in half for whole wheat flour or white whole wheat flour. Okay, once you've got your flour in, you actually want to take your spoon and make a little well in the center of the flour for your yeast. That's going to protect your yeast from the wet ingredients. You're going to add 1½ teaspoons, put it right down in that little well, of fast rise yeast. Sometimes it's labeled bread machine yeast. Cover it up a little bit with flour to protect it from the wet ingredients, and you're ready to put it in your bread maker. You want to set your bread machine on dough cycle, which is going to mix and knead it and give it its first rise. Once the dough setting is done, which usually takes about an hour and a half, you want to take your dough out of your bread pan, put it on a lightly floured surface, and then you're going to cut this in about 8 or so even sections, depending on what size you want your dinner rolls to be. Then you're going to shape them. You can get really fancy with this. I sort of like a more rustic look, so I just sort of shape it into a round circle here, or a mound, and place them on a baking sheet that you have either spread with butter or shortening and sprinkled with a little bit of cornmeal. Gives it a nice flavor and texture on the bottom. Make sure you space them far enough apart so when they rise, they're not going to come together. Once you have all your rolls on your pan, you're going to want to make a crisscross pattern on top of them with a serrated knife. Just going down about, 1/8 of an inch or so. Once you're done making your crisscross pattern, you're going to take 1 egg yolk and 1 tablespoon of water and brush that lightly on top of each roll. This is going to give a really lovely brown color to your baked rolls. This is also something that if your kids are helping, they would love this, sort of like painting. Okay, once that is done, then just kind of to add a really nice little touch is take some oats. Remember, you have your oats in your bread as well, and now we're going to be adding some on top. Just sprinkle a little bit on top of each one. And you're going to bake these rolls at 350 degrees for about 20 minutes or until they're just a really nice brown color. So after about 20 minutes, your rolls will be done. They get a really nice golden color. These are going to be so nice and satisfying on a cool day. Next, I'm going to show you a recipe that goes really well with these rolls. It's a very simple red lentil soup. And if you have people at your table who aren't quite sure about lentils, this is the perfect dish to make. We have our batch of warm homemade rolls. I love to pair it with a soup, great for cold weather. This is a Turkish red lentil soup. I had it at a friend's house one night, and it was truly the first lentil recipe I'd ever tried that I absolutely loved, and I knew I had to have the recipe. What you do is you heat your pan on medium heat. You add 4 tablespoons of olive oil and 1 to 2 onions that you've either pureed in a food processor or in your mini chopper. That's going to give this soup a really great smooth texture. What's also nice about this recipe is that it's vegetarian and vegan. So if you remember, making something ahead was one of our time-saving tips, and here is where that comes into play. You can chop this onion ahead of time, either in the morning, or you could even have done it the week before, stuck it in your freezer, and it's ready to pop into your pan. So you're going to saute those onions in the olive oil for about a minute until they're sort of translucent and soft. Then add 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Mix that in, it gives it a really great color. And 1 teaspoon paprika. To that, you're going to add 1 cup of rinsed red lentils. I really love red lentils because they almost sort of dissolve into this soup. So again, if you have some eaters at your table who are kind of on lentils, they may really love this recipe. Lentils are also a great source of fiber and protein. Next, we're going to add 1/2 cup bulgur. You're going to find bulgur in either the ethnic food section of your supermarket or the natural food section. Bulgur is actually kernels of whole wheat that have been boiled and dried. I'm going to add that. And lastly, 8 cups of vegetable broth. Broth is one of those places I do like to go organic because you can get great prices on store brand organic broth. Then you're going to cook this for about an hour on low to medium heat. At this point, you can also add about 1/8 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. I leave that out because my kids don't like spicy foods and we add ours later. This soup is ready after about an hour, and it makes enough that you can serve it for dinner and then still have enough for leftovers the next night. We like to put lots of fresh lemon juice in ours. About 1/2 of a small lemon or 1/4 of a large lemon. This is also when you can add a little bit of cayenne pepper if you haven't already, and some slivered almonds on top look really nice too. Serve this with a bagged salad that's washed and ready to go, and your rolls, and you've got a great easy meal for a cool night. I hope that you have enjoyed this and got some great time-saving tips. For more information, visit my blog, realmomnutrition.com.